There was a time when I was making over $50,000 a month. I had the house, the cars, even property overseas, and I thought it would never end. Today, I'm sitting here in the woods, trying to figure out how to start again. If things are going well for you right now, you need to hear this. This is a bit of a cautionary tale. At the moment, I'm in not such a brilliant situation financially. I lost my 30-year career as a professional photographer to initially, the events that took place in 2019. That didn't help. But more recently to AI. So effectively, I've lost everything I built over the years. Now, this is a cautionary tale because you never know what is going to happen. I grew up in a poor background. I lived with my parents and brother. We actually lived with my grandma in a 2-bed house which belonged to my grandma. She had 1 bedroom, and another bedroom was what myself, my brother and my parents shared. There were 2 beds packed tightly together with hardly enough room between them to walk through, and me and my brother slept in one of the beds, head to toe, and my parents slept in the other bed. And my parents were great. They did the best, both working class, both worked, but nevertheless my background was pretty poor. And in fact, the house we lived in didn't even have a toilet. Our toilet was up the garden, a kind of toilet cum bomb shelter. And when I was younger, when I went to school, I was one of the poorest kids, and so I got picked on a lot for being so poor. And I worked hard. I enjoyed learning, so I studied hard at school to better myself. And eventually I ended up leaving school with A levels in maths and physics and 10 O levels. And I became a computer programmer after a course in programming. But my passion was always photography, and I shared this passion with my father, and he taught me how to process film and then develop the prints in the darkroom. And where are you going? And so photography was my passion, and I was creating images that were actually being displayed in galleries and publications. So where are you going? To cut a long story short, I left my career in computer programming to become a professional photographer. And over the years, I built a business up which became very successful. In the early 2000s, my business had grown quite significantly, and I was making anywhere between $45,000 and $65,000 a month. I know I'm in the UK and we have pounds, but people seem to understand dollars more, so I've converted it to dollars. Not that I saw a huge amount of that due to massive tax and VAT expenses over here, but nevertheless, my business was really successful, and I just thought that things would just continue in that way. At the time, I hadn't just developed a photography business, I'd also developed a sort of a fashion range, because one of the shoots I did, I created a catalogue for a local leatherware manufacturer, and when I made this catalogue, it generated a lot of interest, and other companies were asking me to produce catalogues and things of that nature. So that grew quite well, and I was doing shoots for companies in Germany and other parts of Europe as well. And I did a deal with the manufacturer to have my own range. So I created a range, created a catalogue, and I was able to buy the items for wholesale and sell them through my marketing. So apart from photography, I did have a side business with these fashions. I'll probably go into that a bit more in another video. And also, one of the jobs I got in about 2000 was to go to Moscow and create a sort of a tourist video, and that was that was a bit of a challenge, because at the time there wasn't any. You couldn't go to a travel agent and say, I want to go to Moscow. It was quite hard. I had to get a visa to go to Moscow, and again, that'll be another story. But I did do some shoots for an international dating agency, and I ended up travelling around Russia and Ukraine, going to a variety of different agencies to set up all these photo shoots. So again, that was something else that I did. I mean, I spent many years in Ukraine, and these more stories I'll gradually start bringing to light. But what I'm trying to say in this video is that things were really good, and like I said, I was making, you know, $45,000 to $65,000 a month, and I just thought that this is great. I mean, you know, it's just going to go on forever. And I suppose coming from a poor background and the one thing I didn't have was very good financial acumen. You know, I didn't know anything about finances or investments or anything like that. I just sort of assumed that because I was good at what I did and the work was coming in, that it would always be like this. And so I just carried on, oblivious to what may come. You know, I ended up with a really nice house. I had nice cars, motorbikes. I had a place in Spain as well. And I just thought things would go on like that. Oi, come here. Here. Come here. Hey. Come on, good girl. That's a good girl, good girl. And, but then along came the 2019 event, which meant that I had no work for 2 years. And at the time, well, prior to that, I had the biggest photography studio in the city where I live, and I had 6 staff. And when this 2019 event occurred, nobody could do anything. We had no events to shoot, no work to do in this country or overseas. And I actually struggled a lot through that, because one thing you do, you tend to get used to the level of income and rely on it to some degree. And like I said, I was no financial expert, and I didn't put anything aside. I didn't really, you know, prepare for anything like this. So, but I was positive. I thought, well, you know, I started my business at once, I'll start it up again. So after the extended government holiday, I tried to get back into building my business up. But work just wasn't coming in, and I was really struggling to try and get work, and I didn't really understand why, because I was never really into social media, and so I didn't really know what was happening. I didn't realise that AI was just AI was just growing so much in the background, and I had to downsize, so I couldn't afford to stay in the place that I'd bought because rates, council tax, utilities were really expensive for a property of that size. So I had to sell that and downsize to a much smaller place. And, you know, having said that, even though I'd lost what I'd built, I was still in a better position than when I first started, many, many years ago when I grew up poor. So even though now I'm not exactly, you know, got anything like what I used to have, I do feel blessed in that I do have a roof over my head, so that's something. But going back to the business, I just couldn't build it back up because AI had, you know, it effectively killed photography. So what I'm trying to get over to you, maybe there's some of you out there now who are making serious money, thinking, hey, this is great, I'm loving all of this, I'm loving this AI world, I'm just making so much money. Don't make the same mistake I made, because you do not know what's around the corner. When I was doing really well, I thought I was invincible. I thought that this is just going to go on forever. But you never know what's going to happen. And what I would say is try and put some money aside. Just try and think. You won't know what's going to hit you when it hits you. And you can lose everything quicker than how fast you made it. You know, hindsight is a wonderful thing. If I knew such things as, you know, worldwide viruses or AI would have put me out of business, I would certainly have looked after my wealth a lot better then. At the moment I'm struggling a little bit. You know, what I mainly do now is basically just try to feed us both. There are three main reasons why I'm doing this channel. The first is that I still love photography and video work, and I still want to use my equipment and play about with my equipment, so this is one way of doing that. Of course, over the years I've always been behind the camera, and so this is quite new to me. It's quite daunting actually, being in front of the camera, but it's quite a unique process. It's very cathartic, it's very interesting to learn something new. Another reason is because after watching YouTube, I'm trying to find out if there's anything else I can actually do, you know, hopefully using my skills to find something else, just to make a bit of, you know, just enough money to feed us both. And so one of the main things I'm trying at the moment is Shopify, and that's a bit hit and miss at the moment because I've got no real idea what I'm doing there. I'm just going along with the flow, just see if I can actually create anything. So far, after about 4 weeks of it, I've not actually made anything. Not that I expect to, because, you know, I'll do some videos as I progress with that. Come here, come here. Come here. What was my third reason, eh? What was my third reason? And my third reason is that I really would like to, see if there's any kind of community out there, just to see if I can make contact with anyone else from my era, from the Analogue era, people who understand what life was like in the 80s and 90s, and how different it was then. I will be doing a few videos about my life in the 80s and 90s, well, not necessarily my life, but how things were different, technology, and how the fact is that you used to own things, actually physically own things. It wasn't a world of download and never, subscribe and never own anything. And, it'd be nice just to talk to maybe other people who've been through similar situations, probably particularly photographers and other creatives, artists, or, writers, or anybody else who's all of a sudden their world's just been changed upside, the world's just been turned upside down by AI. And I wonder if, if we can figure out where we go going forward. So, as a precautionary, as a cautionary tale, I think what I'm trying to get across here mainly is that if you are doing well, if you found something that is making you good money, don't make the same mistake I made. Don't become complacent. Don't think for 1 second that it's always going to be like that. You just don't know what's around the corner. You couldn't even imagine what could possibly change your lifestyle, what could possibly change your income. I never for 1 second thought that, a worldwide 2-year holiday would be the thing that started my downfall, and then AI to come along and then finally finish it. So my advice is, if you are doing well now, make sure that you look into putting your money into something that's going to create some kind of security for your future, something that you can rely on if things just suddenly take a turn for the worse. The changes in the world today, they're just going at such a fast pace. You never know from 1 second to the next what's going to happen. So, I've had a good lifetime experiences. I've spent time travelling all over the world. I've spent time living in Ukraine, and I've had good things. I've had good cars, good motorbikes, great holidays. So I can't complain. Because my background was, I was so poor, came from such a poor background. Even now, I still feel, I do feel happy with what I have, especially her, but at the same time, because of what I've been through, I still do get a bit concerned about things getting worse. So it does concern me. At the moment, all I want to do is make enough to feed us, really, because, you know, that's the most important thing, isn't it, eh? Isn't it, Minky? Eh? Little egg. But yeah, the fact that you never know what's coming around the corner, it's quite a worrying thing, really, particularly in today's world of wars and AI. So just make sure that you look after what you have now and try and prepare for the future. Hey, good girl.